These Roblox games were once massive, completely taking over the platform, but now, a lot of them are starting to fade away. Most games that die on Roblox never come back. Their servers go silent, their communities disappear, and they just vanish. But every now and then, a few refuse to stay dead. They rebuild, rebrand, and somehow bring players back from the grave. Today we're taking a look at those rare comebacks, the games that clawed their way out of the digital graveyard. From Prison Life's sudden return to Sol's RNG's redemption after controversy, Jujutsu Shenanigans constantly reinventing itself, and the recoveries of Deep Woken, Lumion Legacy, and Fish. These are the Roblox games that prove dying isn't always the end. Sometimes it's just the start of something bigger. To understand the first type of death by being ignored, we have to go back in time. Long before today's smooth, money-focused games, the Roblox front page was a more chaotic and simple place. In that time, one game was a giant, Prison Life, made by a developer named Aesthetical. Released on May 1st, 2014, Prison Life was a huge success. Its idea was very simple, a wild, open battle between criminals trying to escape and guards trying to catch them. It was a constant loop of riots, escapes, and fights, and it was hard to stop playing. At its most popular time between 2015 and 2017, it was always on the front page, a groundbreaking game that created a whole new type of game. It was so successful that the hit game Jailbreak was created as a more complete version of what Prison Life began, but its time at the top was built on something that was about to break. The fall of Prison Life wasn't a quick collapse, it was a slow and painful decline. The main problem was simple, the game was left behind. The creator, Aesthetical, was said to be in college, and he stopped working on the game around 2017. Weeks became months, and months became years. In the empty space he left behind, something much worse started to grow. Without new updates, fixes, or rules, the game's programming became weak. Prison Life turned into a place for cheaters. A 2016 announcement for a V2.0 update, which came after more than a year of no news, admitted the game had many bugs and glitches, as well as the countless exploits that are widespread across dozens of servers. Hackers could delete the map and give themselves special powers and spoil the game for others. It was basically impossible to play. The number of players dropped from tens of thousands to only 1 to 2,000. For all practical purposes, it was a dead game, and then, after almost 10 years of no news, something unbelievable happened. On October 12, 2025, the game's official page was updated. The V3 update was here. This was not just a simple update for old time's sake. A new team had done major surgery on the game's old programming. The update notes on the dev forum explain what happened. It wasn't about new features, it was a technical rebirth. They announced a complete rewrite of the weapon system for better stability, a rewritten raycasting system, and most importantly, a fix for a cheat that let players crash other people's games. They improved old slow code, making the game run smoother, from around 240 frames per second to over 300. The effect was instant. YouTuber Naps made a video called Prison Life Updated, It Sucks, but the most popular comment showed what really happened. Sucks when it removed 99% of hackers from the game, which made it actually playable and revived the game from 1,000 to 13,000 LOL. Nice rage bait. That one comment explained the comeback. The number of players grew not because of new exciting features, but because the game could finally be played. After years of being left behind, a classic game was set free. While Prison Life died from being ignored, our next example, Sol's RNG, almost died from one huge mistake, a broken promise that destroyed the community's trust. Released in late 2023, this luck-based role game became extremely popular, with over 100,000 people playing at the same time at its highest point. Its attraction was simple, the feeling of excitement from rolling for very rare auras, but the game's quick success was met with growing anger about what players called a lack of effort from the developers. Updates were slow, and the community felt like they were being ignored. This growing anger turned into a major problem with the rollback controversy. After a bug that copied items flooded the game's market with fake items, the developers announced a server reset to an earlier time to fix the problem. Thinking their progress would be reset, many players used up their rarest and most valuable items like heavenly potions, believing they would get them back after the reset. But then the developers cancelled it. They announced that a reset was not possible to do. In a moment, players who had believed the announcement and used their items lost them forever. The community was very angry. The only thing offered to make up for it was a temporary in-game boost called "We're sorry," a gesture that players thought was not nearly enough. One YouTuber said, "People lost hundreds of heavenly potions, the most they get is an 'I'm sorry' buff. In my opinion, that's a little low."
Is a "we're sorry" buff. Enjoy your reward. I feel like they've gotta give a better reward than that. Like, people lost hundreds of heavenly potions. The most they get is an "I'm sorry" buff.
Trust was destroyed. The game lost over 120,000 players at the same time from its peak. Content creators like Allshifted said they were quitting the game until the issues are addressed and resolved. The comeback for Sol's RNG was not a great return, but a desperate attempt to fix the damage. Instead of a reset, the developers created a system to cancel out the copied auras, changing their luck number to question mark, which gave real items their value back. They also thought about letting players buy back lost item packs. It was an effort to save a failing game. While the game's player count is now around 26,000, it has survived if we compare it to its dark ages of having only 5,000 concurrent players. Our final story of a game's fall caused by developers is the most complicated. Deep Woken, a difficult fantasy game that you have to pay for, didn't die from being ignored or from one mistake. It almost died because its developers lost their direction. After it was released, the game reached an amazing 40,000 players at the same time, bringing in an older group of players than usual for Roblox. But after that first excitement, serious problems started. The main issue was a major lack of new things to do that felt important. Once players finished the main story, the only thing left was fighting other players, which pushed away a large part of the player base. This long time with no new updates was because of a huge multi-year development mistake, a MOBA-style game mode called Conquest. The community mostly did not want it, but the developers spent up to 2 years working on it only to give up on the project completely. One Reddit user sadly said, "Essentially 2 years were wasted. That was 2 years that could have been used for the exploration and story updates that players were desperate for." Making it worse was a total lack of being open and honest. "There is no communication between devs and players anymore," one user wrote. The game's purpose started to change. What was once a difficult exploration game became what critics called a glorified battlegrounds game, with a negative player versus player community that was very unfriendly to new players. Many players got tired of the game, and the player count dropped to a low of 4,000 to 6,000. The comeback for Deep Woken is a continuing story of changing direction. The most important part was a change in leadership, with Agamatsu, who is a popular Deep Woken YouTuber, becoming the new head of development. This showed a change in thinking. A new plan was released showing details of long-awaited updates like Layer 3, a new character origin, and ship parts. Updates that match the game's original idea. Recent big updates like a monster redesign have been liked by players. YouTuber The Real Punchy's video on the update had a top comment that said, "Raguzer, who was the previous head developer, came back and suddenly the update logs are actually bearable." The community feels a sense of hope mixed with worry. The game is fighting its way back, with player numbers becoming stable around 11,000 to 15,000. Deep Woken's return is proof that it's never too late to go back to the path that players first loved. Not all games that die are gone forever. For many, death is just for a short time, an expected drop in an endless cycle of excitement and players getting tired. These games' popularity depends on their update schedule, with their player counts going up and down like the ocean. Jujutsu Shenanigans, a fighting game based on the popular anime, is the perfect example of this cycle. Released in April 2022, the game's popularity is a wave that changes a lot. During big updates, it reaches amazing peaks of over 100,000 players at the same time, but during the unavoidable quiet times between updates, that number can fall to 17,000. The game's community has gotten used to this, with one user saying the developer's plan is to release big updates when the player count drops. It's a cycle of bringing people's interest back to the game. This leads to a feeling of constant impatience, where jokes about players not getting an update every hour are common. The times when the game is less popular are caused by more than just a lack of new things to do. The game is troubled by balancing problems, with some characters being too powerful all the time, which leads to the same winning strategies being used over and over. The community is also known for being very competitive and negative, making it hard for new players to stay during quiet times. But just when the game seems to be losing popularity, a new update is released and the cycle starts again. The recent Puppet Master update brought the player count back up again. The developers know their players have a hunger for new content that can't be satisfied, and they provide just enough to keep the game going. Jujutsu Shenanigans isn't a story of one death and one comeback. It's a story of many, a machine that never stops, powered by excitement. If Jujutsu Shenanigans has a fast cycle, Lumion Legacy is its sad, slow version. As the follow-up to the deleted fan-favorite Pokemon Brick Bronze, it was released in 2019 with a lot of excitement. But what came next was one of the most famously slow development cycles on the platform. The reason is a major slowdown point. The main developer, Brad, is said to be overly worried about secrets getting out after a former developer leaked PBB's code. Because of this, he refuses to hire new coders, which means there is only one programmer for the whole game. The result is a very painful lack of new content. The time between big story updates has grown from months to years. Theater 2 was released 3 months after the game started. Theater 3 took 10 months. Theater 4 took almost 2 years. The last big story update was in November 2023. Instead of new story parts, the game depends on the same events for holidays or seasons, making it what one player called a Pixels farming simulator. This has caused many players to feel tired and unmotivated. One user commented, "By the time it's finished, the loyal player base who waited from the very beginning would become way too busy with adult life. Lumion Legacy's comebacks are not real recoveries. They are short, repeating spikes in players caused by these events. The Halloween 2025 event, for instance, brought players back, but the game's normal player count has dropped to as low as 300 to 400 on quiet days. The community is deeply split. Some are excited for the events, while others, like YouTuber Zach, see it as a desperate attempt to make money, tweeting, "Bringing back old reskins because you're desperate for people to spend money on your dead game." Lumion Legacy is in a state of slow, controlled failure, a warning story of how a fear of being betrayed can slowly kill a game. We've looked at games that died from being ignored, from mistakes, and from a slow decline, but Fish died in a complete disaster. Released in March 2024 by a single developer, Woozy Nate, this relaxing fishing game was a huge hit right away, reaching over 500,000 to 1 million players at the same time. It was a project done for love that was enjoyed by millions. Then the developers sold the game to a large company, Do Big Studios. The new owners quickly made updates that pushed players hard to spend money. Paid luck boosting insanity, pay to win eggs, and questionable sales made the game unfair and pushed away the player base. The community fought back, with one popular comment on a YouTube video saying, "Every time we get a good game, it gets ruined by greed." The player count dropped from its 500,000 peak to as low as 10,000. The game was dead, killed by a company's greed. The comeback was like something from a happy, unbelievable story. On August 21st, a message appeared in the Discord, "Fish is back, Do Big Studios, no longer has any connection to the game." The original developer Woozy Nate had gotten complete control back. He started working right away, removing the unpopular pay-to-win features one by one. He held special events, and on October 4th, one of these events caused the player count to jump back to over 1 million users at the same time, breaking its old records. YouTubers called it the greatest comeback in Roblox history. It was a story of being saved from a bad situation, showing that even after a game is sold and seems to be ruined, the return of a dedicated player-focused creator can bring it back from the edge of disaster. That being said, in the graveyard of Roblox, most ghosts never return, but these games prove that with effort and honesty, even the dead can rise again. So, what classic game do you want to see make a comeback? Let me know in the comments.